I have 3 anecdotes I would like to share to give a tangible idea of what education is like in today's environment. The first is the first lecture of political economy here at Melbourne Uni. Under the pretense of explaining political and economical theories, the lecturer bragged about how people who vote for right-wing political parties are uneducated, they have some sort of false consciousness, and they do not understand what is best for them and how the world works.
Many people will say, it is just interest-based determinism. If you're a capitalist, you'll think like this. If you're a working class person, at least a working class person that understands their true interests and is not suffering from some kind of false consciousness or reading the wrong kinds of articles or spending too much time on a particular social media platform, then, you will understand that you need to vote, if you're in the working class, for a left-wing political party, ideally a communist one that will overthrow capitalism. That's really important is that people, as Marx said, and I mentioned false consciousness earlier, people are often really poorly informed, including, I have to say, some people in my own family, generally the older generation, really poorly informed. Oh, don't worry, Andrew, about that climate change stuff. It's really happy. It was really hot back in the 1950s in Western Australia, let me tell you. Right, my dad. Yeah, that's... Anyway, poorly informed, disengaged, listening to the wrong people on TV. Andrew Bolt should be listening to me. Another Andrew... influenced by the media. You probably all got an uncle or a grandfather or something like this, or maybe you're lucky and you don't, but, people are often biased by ideology. Don't necessarily understand the world, hopefully, as well as you people will.
Needless to say that I withdrew from that subject after this very first lecture, as I clearly was not going to learn anything useful. And while some might say that that was just my interpretation of the lecture because of my own bias, as you can hear from those abstracts, the comments the lecturer kept throwing here and there made it abundantly clear that he quite despised the political right while promoting socialist ideas. Authorized by Bianca Kolekia Pekkanen.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
And if the yes vote is successful, we will be divided forever.
What does confrontation mean? It means you fight for what you believe.
We've got Trumpet media running this country, brother.
Unless you're scripted, you're useless.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. My name is Stephen Tripp. Thank you to everyone who is watching this episode. If you are watching this live on YouTube, Facebook or Rumble, you can contribute live in the chat. We want to hear from you. You can put your comments forward and your questions. And also, if you can see that StreamYard link in the chat, you can call in and have your say as well. Please do so. We love hearing from everyday people willing to express their views. Now, on tonight's episode, we've got 2 great candidates from 2 separate parties, which is going to be interesting. It's right in the middle of election season. Pre-polls just started. I'm hoping that pre-polls not too brutal for you all out there. It is a very time-consuming and chaotic time during elections. I think pre-polls probably worse than election day in some ways, but it's I guess it's part of the system that we operate under. So I hope you all getting through it and enjoying it somehow. But just to let you know how you can follow us, head to commandingthenarrative.com. Hit the donate button if you want to donate to us. Contribute some money to help us pay for the stream, helps to pay for the website, and also give me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, which is very important. But while you're also on the Commanding the Narrative website, hit the sign up button in the top right hand corner and you'll get a weekly newsletter from me with all our podcasts. We just did a really great podcast with Stuart Bonds that got a lot of really good feedback. Also, the recent forum that we did down in Whitlam, the first Commanding the Narrative live event. That's also been getting some great reviews. That's all up on the website at the moment as well. All the latest articles will be there, and also upcoming events. If you want to know what's happening on the podcast, who's coming up on the podcast throughout the week, you can head to commandingthenarrative.com and also check out all our upcoming events. This Sunday, we've got a forum in Warrawee at the Warrawee Club. It's on the Pacific Highway in Warrawee. It's the North Shore Community Forum, Sunday, April 27th from 1 to 4 p.m. It's going to be a great event. It's just $5 donation at the door. We've got Senate candidates like Steve Christou from the Libertarians, Warwick Stacey from One Nation, Silvana Nile from the Trumpet of Patriots, and also Lyle Shelton from Family First, and also some lower house candidates like Giselle Capterian from the Liberal Party in Bradfield, Andy Yin, who's an independent in Bradfield, David Spratt, who I've also had on the podcast from Warringah, and a host of other candidates from Warringah, Bradfield, and Mackellar as well. So please come along to that one if you're free on Sunday. Also, I'll let you know about Australians for Better Government. Now, we're going to be hitting the ground running after the election with Australians for Better Government. But if you want to check us out beforehand, please head to australiansforbetter.com. Hit the mission tab in the top to see what we're all about. And also, if you want to come to this fundraiser on May 25th, you can hear from the likes of John Ruddick from the Libertarians, Darren DeBortley from DeBortley Wines, and also the great man Kevin Lockray coming all the way down from Ballina to spread his wonderful wisdom. And lastly, I'll just finish off with the latest edition of the Light newspaper. If you want to support uncensored, unfiltered, independent media, please head to thelightaustralia.com, get the new copy of the latest issue 17. And also, if you want to distribute that paper, you can follow the prompts there and get it out to everyday people, get all that information out to them. There's some great stuff in there. All right, tonight, this is going to be fun. I've been trying to speak to as many good candidates as I possibly can this election. One of these candidates I owe a favor, I suppose. I've been telling him I'm going to have him on for quite a while now. And the other one I met down in Whitlam recently at a forum, and she was very impressive. So let's bring them on right now. Vanessa Hadchiti from the Libertarians in Watson, and Robert Nalbandian from the Trumpet of Patriots in Bennelong. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for calling me good.
Well, I don't normally call you good.
I didn't say you don't. But how are you going, Vanessa?
I'm going good. It's interesting to be on this, and 4 years later with Robert being on Trumpet of Patriots, and I'm with the Libertarian Party, considering we were both at the last federal election with the United Australia Party. So here we are. Who would have known? Who would have guessed it?
Not me. So, but you know, this is what's required, I think, to stand up and do something. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's kick things off. Maybe the best way to do it is to get a bit of a background from both of you. Now, Robert, you've been on the ex-candidates in the past, episode 62, but that was a long time ago. It was almost 2 years ago now. So we'll get a little bit of a background for you as well, and also your journey into politics. What's led you to this point now? So, Vanessa, let's kick it off with you. Let the audience know who you are and how you got to this point.
How long do I have so I can wrap it up neatly? Say half a minute.
It's not, just as quickly as possible.
Okay. So I invested in politics during the pandemic. I was happy working full-time in healthcare and just moving along, working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. With the pandemic, it started to open up my eyes to the reality and the vulnerability that we are all in. And hearing Craig Kelly advocate for the anti-lockdown measures and also anti-vaccine coercion, he was really speaking my thoughts. And that's when I put my hand up when they had a call out to candidates, and I decided to join to make a difference. And since then, I haven't stopped. So it's been a very exciting ride getting stronger from year to year with every campaign. And here I am with the Libertarian Party for the last 2 years. Yeah.
And you're running in the electorate of Watson, which is Tony Burke's electorate. He's Labor. That's
right.
The area around Bankstown, Campsie, Lakemba, Condell Park, those sorts of areas. So that's going to be interesting to see how you guys go in that electorate. But specifically for this election, 2025, what motivated you to put your hand up this time?
Look, I guess even though you do get exhausted from campaigning, and it wasn't that long ago the local elections were running, it just felt like I can't stop. I have to keep going because the situation hasn't changed. To be honest, yes, the pandemic measures have passed, but then now the cost of living, and I find people are really struggling, and it breaks my heart because I'm in healthcare. I see elderly patients that are doing it so tough. I see healthcare services that are very disproportionately provided. And I just see that this is definitely not heading down the right track. I have to do my part for the general population. And if we don't have candidates running, then we don't give the voters a choice. And if I'm there, I'm a choice. But if there is no choice, then I cannot deter people from voting for the major parties. So that's why I ran.
Very good. We've got a comment here from Dilemmas. He says, I was watching the miners debate, but I had to come here and support Steve. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. And hopefully this is a much better or valuable podcast for you to give up your time and watch us. But Mr. Nalbandian, you're running in Bennelong for the parody. Oops, so I mean the Trumpet of Patriots.
The who?
The Trumpet of Patriots. Bennelong's formerly won John Howard's seat, so that's interesting. Yep. It's Macquarie Park, Ryde, areas like that. It's currently held by the Labor guy Jerome Laxale. Why did you decide to run in Bennelong? And maybe just give maybe some of your background as well.
Okay, so again, like Vanessa, when I saw in 2021, Craig Kelly there was a video going out saying we're looking for candidates. And I think in general, a lot of us were like, okay, for 1.5 years, the governments have trampled on so many civil liberties, freedoms, they've restricted people. So that just made me think, like, is this kind of it? Are we going into an authoritarian government? Like, I was seriously thinking, like, how is Australia a democracy when you're arresting people for not wearing a mask, or you're outside and you're not 6 feet apart, 1.5 meters, which, later was proved to just be a made-up rule. So I was, sitting at home. Now, I will say this, if we remember, and maybe I shouldn't mention her name because it's, sacrilegious on your show, but Gladys Berejiklian doesn't live far from my electorate. And I was noticing, I'm like, okay, people out here have a lot more freedom than some of my relatives and friends out in Western Sydney. I'm like, my mate, he's going, there's helicopters till 3 a.m. And I thought to myself, wow, like, they're really, really pushing where they can, but it seemed unfair at the same time. People could go to the beach, you're watching videos. So anyways, I saw that video, and I honestly felt like I was supposed to run. I say it's a call by God, and I didn't want to do it initially, but I ended up doing it, and I thought, all right, if this is meant to be, I'll get to become the candidate for North Sydney at the time. And then I remember that I had a daytime nap. I saw a missed call from the UAP state director and a voicemail, and they're like, we got good news for you. And I just thought to myself, no, hang on, what? Like, me? And it was me. And I was, honestly, the next day I was kind of speechless the whole day. I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty serious, And then what was really encouraging is meeting people like Vanessa, like yourself. And there's so many people I'd name. So if I forget a name, it's not that I didn't want to mention you. But I remember going to the UAP You went to sign paperwork. They wanted to see you face to face. Craig was there, the state director. It's where I met Andrew Robertson. I met Rob Fletcher. I met Dave Smith, the Anglican boxing priest. I met so many people, and many more through the process. I thought, oh, okay, there is actually quite a number of people who are, as Vanessa said, looking for an option. I remember I went to a rally as well, and some lady was telling Craig, now I'm a Christian and I don't hide my Christianity, in the sense that I'm very outspoken about it and I like to share it. But I remember going to one of these rallies to go and sort of suss Craig out, because I didn't know him anything. You know, you see people on TV, it could be a bit different, but Craig was pretty down to earth. He seemed like he was talking to everybody. He didn't like, you know, he didn't have that movie star thing going where there's a layer of bodyguards. Like, he was just on his own and he was talking to people. I remember one lady in particular, she was like, Craig, I've prayed for Christians to sort of get involved in politics. And I was standing there thinking, lady, I'm your answer to prayer. I might not look like anything special. And I told her that, and I ended up seeing her at another rally. So, at another function. But the point is that I realized, okay, there is actually a need for better government, better people in power. And the quote that I've heard, but I can't remember it exactly, but it's basically like, if you don't have decent people rule over you, you're going to be left with the idiots and the narcissists, greedy people, self-interested. And that's kind of what we've seen, I'd say, maybe for at least 30 to 50 years. It might not have been as obvious before, but it kind of like, and I think I might have heard this on maybe from one of your guests, but but anyway, it was basically a very few things can happen in decades, then decades can happen in a very shorter period amount of time. And I think from what we've all seen lately, it seems like they pushed decades of, you know, authoritarian, you know, misinformation, disinformation, all these crazy laws they're trying to bring into place in a very short space of time. So, you know, I thought to myself, okay, this is the right thing to do. And that's why I put my hand up. Like a lot of people, and I'm going to preempt maybe one of your questions, why Trumpet of Patriots? Again, I think this comes down to doing something. If we just sit back and do nothing, we're just going to have the majors. That's it. Like, that's how I feel. So I'd rather put my hand up and say, at least consecutively, I tried to do something, whether you agreed with it or not. But for me, as a man of principles, I put my hand up to try and help Australia and to help Australians and to maintain, you know, a good future for future generations, just like people did before for us. I think in a way we owe it to future generations to keep what is good and to preserve it.
You mentioned Craig Kelly, and you know, you looked up to Craig Kelly back at the last election. He's now with the Libertarian Party. Why did you stick with Clive Palmer and the Trumpet of Patriots? Why didn't you jump over to the Libertarians?
Okay, that's a good question. I thought, because I've also, it's not just Craig that I made friends with, right? I mean, before the Libertarians, Craig also went to One Nation, right? So at that time, that was like 2023, and then I think 2023 he joined. I did consider the Libertarians, but I just thought to myself, because I have an established reputation with the HQ, with the UAP and the Trumpet of Patriots, it kind of gets easier and easier to run because they know what I'm like. I'm not saying the Libertarians wouldn't want me to run, but for me, it's like, okay, I know what these people are like, and you got to sort of take, you know, nothing's perfect. You know what I mean? No group is perfect. One Nation's not perfect. I know the Liberal and Labor is not perfect, but with these guys, it's like, I know what the good things are, I know what the bad things are, and I can handle that. And again, I mean, I think you've talked about this in a different way, but I think it's better to have, I thought it was better to have one party, a good, strong, united, you know, Conservative coalition. But you, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you've said that it's better to have a whole bunch of little parties. So I'm kind of maybe feeding into, you know, you talked about how it's better to have a whole bunch of minor parties. I think you've talked about that before, right?
No, I think there's too many small parties, especially especially the parties smaller than One Nation and the Libertarians. I think they're not necessary. I just don't think merging them all and combining them is going to work.
Okay.
A whole host of different reasons. But Vanessa, same question to you. I mean, you're UAP, but now you're Libertarians. Why did you not stick with Clive, and why did you jump to the Libertarians?
So after the 2022 federal election, UAP was not interested in running for the state election or for the local election, and historically they never have. They've only been invested in federal election. At this point, as I gained momentum and experience in the political arena, I realized that you cannot gain ground with supporters, with voters, if you are only parachuting in every 3 years and putting your name there. It had to be a very sort of consistent, sustainable effort. Libertarian Party drew my attention because I can't remember actually how it came to. I knew someone, and then once I started reading into their policies, it really made sense to me. And as I got to know the executive members, they presented themselves in such a sensible way. You could have a talk, a debate, even if there's a difference of opinion. You could sort of make logical decisions. It felt so democratic because there was no central person coordinating the whole party, and it felt like you were part of a family. So even though I was just a candidate, my opinion and my value was just as much as someone that had been there for 20 years. And when you feel that there's that respect transitioning all the way down to the bottom person, you realize you're with the right party because they've developed values which have not they've developed values that are really important and that would only transit then down to the voter or the population. So that gave me a lot of trust and confidence to continue on. And I haven't looked back since. And I'm really happy Craig Kelly's jumped ship and come and joined us, because we always wanted that even before he moved to One Nation. But, I guess at the time he had to do what was, he thought was the best choice at the time. And he'd woken up, and that was a good thing, because now he's realized through all that smoke, once the smoke settled, we're the party that really have a solid presence with solid values. And it's really nice to see the different candidates merge together under the Libertarian umbrella.
I want to move on to cost of living, because that's going to be a big, massive deal for this election. It's a cost of living election. I want to hear the solutions that each of you have on that. But I also don't want to drive a wedge between you two. But Robert, do you have a rebuttal to what Vanessa just said? I mean, you both have gone different paths. It's actually quite interesting to see. We've all gone down different routes, each one of us, and a whole bunch of different people. But do you have anything to say about what Vanessa said?
Well, I would only comment and say it actually attests to the strength of this side of politics, is that we're able to be critical thinkers. Like Vanessa has made the decision to go with the Libertarians. I respect that. I've made the decision to go with essentially, Clive and the Queensland mob up there. And plus, it's also Senator Babette in a way. And you've decided to not go with another party and do podcasts. And so it kind of actually attests to our strengths to be able to decide for ourselves. It's less of a group think, and, I think, though, in the end, eventually we will all have to negotiate and come up with some sort of, whether we stay as 10 parties or 20 parties or one party, whatever it is, eventually I think we'll have to have a serious sit-down chats and decide how we're going to strategize properly. So, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's great. People can decide for themselves what to do.
Yeah, no, well said and very diplomatic, but I think it was a good comment. So cost of living, Vanessa, you're out in a very working class area in the middle of Sydney there. I'm sure you've been out campaigning. Pre-poll started. you're probably speaking to people on the booths. And what's your feedback from people in Watson about costs of living? Is it something they're talking about, or is it maybe not as big as what people think? What have you been hearing from the electorate?
So, well before the election and the campaigning started, I follow some local groups in my area, and that just helps me to stay in touch with what is on the ground. And every now and again, this has to be at least a weekly posting on the suburb within my electorate. Someone posting, I'm in desperate need of beds. I'm in desperate need of diapers. I really need help with food. If anyone can drop something off. And it really it pulls the strings on my heart to know that we live in a developed nation where there's even Centrelink, but it's still not enough that people can provide for themselves the essential needs. Now, bear in mind, these are the everyday people that are using the internet. They have some access to put out messages for help. What about those elderly that are not using social media and have no regular income, just maybe their pension coming through fortnightly? Then what are they going through? Their struggles must be even 10 times worse than the people posting. So it's been tough because there is a high percentage of low income earners, a lot of a very cultured area, a lot of first generation immigrants. And so you have children that support their parents as well as supporting themselves. And there's sort of, fortunately in my electorate, there's a lot of extended family support, but the working people within that family are stretching themselves out to try and make sure everyone stays above water. So I'm hearing the people on the pre-poll when they are really now thinking twice about voting for Labor, because it has been a Labor safe seat for decades. They are really wondering now, what is Labor doing for them? Because once that party stood for them, it's no longer with the cost of living, and you're feeling for them to be pushed to that point, then the situation is it's pretty tough. I do feel bad for a lot of the people.
Yeah, I'm hearing some terrible stories. I brought it up on the podcast in the last few weeks about tent cities in Summer Hill where people are living homeless in parks. And then other people as well are telling me that there are other people that are homeless, but they're not living on the street. They're couch surfing. They're staying with friends. They're staying with family. So you don't necessarily see them out in the communities, but they're still homeless. They still have nowhere to go. I mean, we don't have a measure of how big this issue is. And I think a lot of people are looking at the two major parties and saying, you guys have been in power forever. We should be one of the richest countries in the world. Why are we facing this these economic issues at the moment? And it's really the cost of government. It's the cost of bad leadership and bad policies. Robert, if people are thinking about voting Trumpet of Patriots, what can your party propose? What are some solutions that you guys have put out there to address this cost of living?
Well, I was just, before that, I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned people who are technically not homeless. Like, I was up in Queensland recently, and one of the people that I know, they're living in they've got a ute that's attached to a trailer, like a mobile home, a caravan. And that's what they want to do. But I think there's more and more of that. I've also recently, a few months ago, there was a gentleman who I met, moved from Melbourne, or drove from Melbourne to Sydney, and was living out of his car. And I've spoke to heaps of people who are just doing that, either living out of a car or, they're living in a couch somewhere. So it is pretty bad. It's getting pretty tough out there. So yeah. Now, in terms of policies you mentioned, right? I mean, you mentioned before that like there shouldn't be a shortage of money in our government. Would you agree?
Well, it all comes from the taxpayer, so it really depends on how much they want to take from us.
Well, I mean, when they put $600 million for a rugby team overseas, do you think that's a good use of our money?
I don't know.
Right. So we talk about Doge, we talk about immigration. I think a few people have mentioned these sorts of things. You know, when you're putting so much pressure on the infrastructure, housing, net zero is bankrupting us just bankrupt us just on electricity and power. It's things like this they're all putting pressure from different angles on people. Food is up. Like, I remember even joking around with, when I say joking around, like just casually talking with my mates. I'm not joking about this. It's very serious. I remember we used the $1 Coles tissue boxes. They went up to $1.30. Now that's a 30% increase in like 2 years. And I thought to myself, if that's noticeable, because it was $1 very easy to $1.30, you think, 30 cents, fine. But then we started looking, hey, what else used to be like, from went to 5 to 7, fuel, I spent, fuel was like hovering around $2.20 to $2.50 for the premium. Electricity's gone up. I don't know. I didn't really see much of a rebate. Like, we saw a little rebate and they took it off the final bill. That's gone up. So, we're looking at, housing. If you keep bringing all these people in, or if you just keep wasting money, of course things are going to get hard. If you're not managing the economy, if we're selling off resources cheap, we're not actually making money. We're in $1 trillion of debt. They're busy arguing. The cost of medical. That's another thing. None of it's been managed properly. They haven't, they're constantly, as you said, they're taxing us, the citizen. They're not really, or they're either afraid or they can't go after big corporations because, there's lobbyists and donors and things like that. They're bringing in huge amounts of migration. Housing affordability is another problem. Like I said, power. So all these things are, have to be looked at so that we can, unburden people so they can actually live, so that's it.
Yeah, I just brought up the gold price. You're talking about the cost of tissue boxes. I think the best representation of inflation is the gold price. Like, look at it just take off in the last few years. I mean, gold is now $5,200 an ounce. Australian dollars. Only a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it was $2,500 an ounce. It's pretty much doubled in a few years. The cost of gold, it's incredible, and it's all got to do with, in a large part, in my view, is government spending. Vanessa, I know the Libertarians love solutions or talking about solutions and policies. What do the Libertarians have to say about addressing cost of living?
Well, the cost of living starts with basically cutting useless government spending. So when you can shrink the government spending, not on the people as such, but on things that are non-essential, we're not going to target healthcare. We're not going to target education. We're going to target the politicians, basically the spending that goes outside of Australia, the spending that goes on woke propaganda, the spending that goes on just international warfare. This is all can be basically scrapped. So that way you can bring it back to the people and let the people keep more money in their pockets. So we look at basically reducing the taxes so that the first $50,000 is tax-free. If you have more money in your pocket, that means you're going to be able to afford your food, your essentials, your rent. But at the moment, tax is high, and the cost of living is getting higher. So people can't keep up. Another way where we would look at actually managing the cost of living is that trying to reduce or cut away a lot of the regulations. So small businesses are currently being capped by so much burdensome paperwork. Just look at trying to do your tax paperwork. You have to do it quarterly. You have to do it ahead. There's so much forms to fill out, and small business is getting consumed with all of this, not to mention how costly it becomes with the more paperwork you need to submit, that it's taken them away from doing their everyday job, which is trying to make a business successful. So a lot of small businesses are actually collapsing and shutting down. Just the mere fact they can't afford employees anymore because of the minimum wage increasing so much, superannuation is increasing, penalty rates is increasing. Yes, that can be good if you're an employee on minimum wages, but it can be afforded by the government for certain public health sector work. But when you're a small business, you can't afford this. So it means that the employer has to be in the business working 7 days a week, which then makes them wonder, well, if I can't spend time with my family, what's the point of all of this? And then you take away small businesses, you chip away at them, you don't have any. And then you're all basically monopolized by big supermarkets or by, big Westfields, and they dictate how much you spend on things. So it really removes the options and the freedom. So we're all about trying to deregulate and let the people empower themselves, let the free market just determine how things go, rather than the government dictating where things move and who was strengthened, who was held back, because that's kind of interfering with the natural organic flow of good competition and healthy growth of the economy.
Yeah, one of the policies that I've really been promoting in the last few weeks, and One Nation's got this policy. I've noticed the Libertarians have a very similar policy, is this income splitting, where if you want to have an old traditional family where basically the husband goes out to work and the mother stays home and raises the kids, well, currently that husband gets taxed as an individual, even though he's putting a roof over his family's house. He's, propping up his wife so she can stay home and look after the kids. He's paying for the kids with everything that comes along with that, paying a mortgage possibly, or paying the rent. But how come that is not taken into consideration? He still gets taxed at that individual rate, whereas the Libertarians, One Nation, parties like that are proposing income splitting, where the household is taxed, the household income is taxed rather than the individual being taxed. So that income that he's making would be split with his wife. I mean, that sounds like a common sense policy that anyone would go, okay, well, let's try that out. Let's see how that works. How come the major parties don't adopt stuff like that? They don't seem to have any solutions when it comes to cost of living. Like Peter Dutton's talking about fuel excise. Yeah, that's great if he wants to do that, but it's not really going to help people all that much. Like, how come the minor parties are proposing policies like this, but the majors can't?
Steve, you know what I think?
Don't cut in, mate. That was a question for Vanessa, and then I'll let you.
Okay.
I'll let you. Ladies first.
It's a really good point you made. And in my opinion, it's not that the government knows that there is not a solution such as that available. It is that they set the conditions up to strengthen the government's pocket. So by not allowing income splitting, it forces the mother or the wife to go to work, and which then they have to put their children in childcare. And so by putting them in childcare, you've got a female at work. She then has to also pay tax. So now the government double dips into that family's income. They get tax from the father and the mother. Yes, they give you a bit of childcare allowance, but that childcare allowance is like, well, here's $2, but I'm going to take $20 back from your taxes. They set it up so you really feel like you're getting a benefit due to the childcare, but you're having to go out there and work in order to even top up the childcare. So it doesn't actually work in your favor. It's really important that people look past the fact that you're not getting benefits from nothing. You are paying for those benefits and topping them up. And this is why we can't have this narrow-minded view that if the government decides to, or if a party says, look, we should reform this part of public healthcare spending or this, it's not taking away benefits. It's actually going to give you more freedom to save more money by not throwing so much back into the government's pockets. Such an example, and being in the healthcare, is NDIS. Now, remember, with paying taxes, they've coerced people to get public health cover. If you don't have public health cover insurance for hospital, and you are earning over, I think it's about $92,000 or $97,000 a year, you will be docked another 1% of your taxable income, in addition to the 1.5%, which is mandatory that everyone's already paying. So 2.5% goes out of your taxable income on top of the taxes you're already paying, because the government says we don't have enough money for Medicare. Well, that's great. So you made us all you coerced all of us to sign up to this hospital cover for insurance, which now is going up every year, and people are complaining about the cost of it. $300 a month is not affordable in this current crisis. So if that is the situation, then how did the Gillard government decide to say, introduce NDIS with absolutely no filtration, no prerequisites, and it's now up to the same spending as Medicare? So you're spending $42 billion on NDIS and $42 billion on Medicare. Where are you getting that money from? Because I know firsthand with NDIS, all it's done is go into strengthening these businesses that are the middle people between the government and the people receiving the disability support, and they're being strengthened. On top of that, you get some individuals that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend, and others tens of thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, while Mrs. Jones can't even get to see a physiotherapist more than 5 times a year because she's not eligible, and that's capped at what, $300 spending. So you can see the disproportionate allocation of funds from one individual to the other, and that's called useless. That's wasteful spending.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's like they don't want to do anything that's like common sense based, or like, you know, everything's just a rort. Everything's just it seems like a scam. Money's just flowing everywhere. I mean, you can see that in America with what Elon Musk is uncovering. I'm sure these things here in Australia are the exact same thing. But Robert, you wanted to say something before I rudely interrupted you.
Oh, that's all right. What I was going to say is that it's like that old joke, you know, if they print money, why are we paying taxes? So, you know, because I mean, yeah, look, there is a lot of wasted money. And there's one thing you said about how come the majors, they don't have policies. What I've seen is that, for example, and I'm only just saying, I remember seeing it with the UAP, but I'm sure, like I've said before, across the board, we kind of all think alike. We have some similar ideas that'll overlap from time to time. But I remember, like 2022, we said, let's bring superannuation home. Everyone laughed it off. Okay, great. Then I remember hearing, was it Chalmers and Albanese, or some of them started saying, oh, you know, when might bring the super home? So I think what they do is, like, they literally get their ideas out of, like, the small parties, because they've got no good ideas. They've got, you know, they're not really, the major parties are not attracting genuine candidates who have a deep concern or a desire to see Australia prosper. And because what we know now, the people that are becoming candidates and then becoming members of parliament or senators in the majors, you know, and the teals as well, are driven by self-interest ideologies that are, you know, more important than the truth. So I think that's part of the problem. I was told many times to join the Liberal Party, but I felt like it would be just a pointless exercise, and I'm sure I would have got booted by now. So yeah, that was what I was going to say.
All right. So look, we could talk about cost of living all night, but I want to push through with some other issues. One of the policies that Sue Ellen Wrightson came up with very early on when Trumpet of Patriots first popped up was this high-speed rail, and that lit off the page when I heard her say that. What are some nation-building policies that the Trumpets are putting forward? Like how would a high-speed rail benefit Australia, Robert?
Well, we don't all have to live congested in a city, for one. I mean, honestly, I went to Queensland recently. Like, I'm going to keep mentioning this because it was just put up there. It was a lot more spaced out. There's a lot less traffic. There's a lot less sort of people in your way. So as an example, let's say you have, and I think the big one they've talked about, which really annoyed, the transport companies in terms of planes, is high-speed rail from, say, Sydney or Melbourne to Canberra. Wouldn't that make a lot of sense? Isn't that where the capital for politics, anyways, in Australia? Right? They're all going there in a federal level. Why wouldn't you want that? Oh no, you want your frequent flyer mileage, and you want your little bonuses, and you got to keep your, the CEO of these airline companies, they're your mates after all. So, having high speed rail would enable people to travel to work. So you could, I could, for example, move to the Blue Mountains, or even further up to Newcastle, whatever it is, Maitland, right? And if you had something that within 75 minutes could get you there. Now, before COVID, so I live, say, I think it's about 10, not bird's eye, what's the straight kilometers to the city, right? But sometimes sometimes it'll take you 90 plus minutes just to get there because of all the traffic, the congestion. I'm crossing the Harbour Bridge, you're waiting for buses. So it kind of makes sense from this perspective that if you build the infrastructure for people to be able to travel to work, some people will take that option to live outside the metro cities. So, yeah.
What about the Libertarians, Vanessa? This is something that I don't hear them talk about in building roads and rail and infrastructure, nation building projects. What's the Libertarian perspective on that?
The Libertarians often take the principle of letting the market decide what happens. So, you will always be invested to provide roads, so in terms of public spending, but there would be also investments. There would also be stakeholders that you could invite to the table that you could encourage to invest in infrastructure. These conversations allow them people with that extra money to help develop the nation. We're not talking about privatizing as such, like the toll roads have been privatized to the point where now tolls are even unaffordable and they keep going up every year. But you would do it in such a way where developers are not constantly having to go through so much rigmarole. It would make it easier for them to go out, develop somewhere that's 2 hours out of Sydney and propose, okay, well, we'll help build this road to get you into town. You just help us approve it, make it easier for us. And then it makes it a lot more of a financially feasible project for them to carry out. Because once we deregulate things, it allows the profit to make it a worthwhile project. In that case, then things start happening. But at the moment, the government is so heavy on developers, it's so heavy on construction, that by the time they get through all the spending to try and just pass through their paperwork, they just have to sit here and wonder, is it all worth it? With the cost of building supplies is already inflated and the cost of wages, it really just adds that extra obstacle. So we're just saying deregulate, reduce the sort of obstacles, and let the market decide where things go, so that if there's a supermarket that's going to be built, naturally you're going to have people that are more comfortable living next to it. But these things need to happen easily. I look at other nations when I travel, and you realize that the reason that people have spread across the nation is because there isn't so much of a restriction of how you build. And I'm not saying we need to make it an unsafe building, but we need to make it easier, less costly, and more efficient. Council workers are renowned for sitting on paperwork for months just because it would be in their best interest to not move fast. That way they keep themselves basically in demand. Well, they could move a lot faster with that paperwork, because if it was a private business, it would happen within a week. As such, now a developer can move forward and actually make things happen sooner and make decisions accordingly. All these small things just make life easier for money to move forward. So deregulating just helps a lot. And so rights to also your land means you have a lot more freedom to do with something you want with it. At the moment, Australia is basically in a situation, even if I own my own property, they can almost decide what I do with that property. Well, we say you own it. You do what you want with it. You've bought that property. You've invested hundreds of thousands in it. We can't hold you back from doing what you want with it. Otherwise, that just seems silly. It's like we're the part owners. So the Libertarians believe if you own a property, you should have almost all rights to do what you like with that property, with that land. And that means that freedom to prosper and to not be held back. Yeah.
Robert, you looked very uncomfortable there. Did you have a rebuttal to that?
Well, look, I often, when people say, like, with total deregulation, what is to stop? Like, where is the limit for foreign companies to come with their massive amounts of money and then just, if you deregulate or privatize almost everything, what happens then? Do we privatize and have foreign companies dictating local companies? That's where, for me, I think there does have to be some sort of boundary or safeguard, because it's sort of like, why do we lock our doors when we go to bed at night? For security. Well, wouldn't it be the same with certain industries and certain things that they should be protected? That's always just my query. Although I do believe we need to essentially get government, like messy, big, non-transparent government. We need to get all this out of a lot of different areas, So, but yeah, I think that there still has to be a limit. Of course, the government does have to be kind of like this last barrier between the people and foreign interests.
So, with I actually appreciate that. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
You go, Vanessa.
I was going to say, I actually appreciate what Robert's saying, because he's probably sounding what a lot of people think. There's this fear of who's going to watch over us, who's going to protect us. If you leave it up to people to do things, then what about if I'm affected negatively? The way I just want people to perceive this is, in a utopia world or utopia Australia, Libertarians would have to fill every seat in government to make all our policies roll out. So what we're saying is, you've got to think Labor has all these policies that you would not be able to roll out had there not been Liberal in there, Greens in there, and other minor parties and independents. No party can roll out its full policies due to the resistance from other parties being in government. What we will be is that representation to say, well, the government's taking it too far one way. They're very much overarching on people's rights and freedoms to make decisions on things that they've actually worked hard and paid for. Let's rein them in a little bit. Let's be that voice to stop them from being over-controlling. And we will be that resistance. It will never get to a point realistically, maybe not for decades where we will fill every seat in government, but you need someone, just like you needed that Craig Kelly to speak up against vaccine coercion. You needed someone like him in Parliament to hold back the politicians. We are that voice for people's freedom of their property and their autonomy of their body.
Robert, do you have a final word on that before we move on?
Well, I just think if you just let it, the French, what they call laissez-faire, like the market decides. I still think it's bad, and I think Steve, you've had guests on before, which even you and when Adam was on with you, disagreeing that complete freedom in a market with no restraints is not necessarily a good thing. I do think a little bit of boundary is important. Like I know John Ruddick, he was on one of the news. He was saying that he wants to let essentially Campbelltown become like a Manhattan, where it's just sprawling and, let's build it up and let it go wild. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing. But then again, if we actually, in this utopia scenario, if we actually enable people to have the power to decide what to do, it could be good, it could be bad. Look, it probably can't be much worse than what we've got now, which is overregulation. I definitely agree we're overregulated. And I just want to say, and I've mentioned this to you before, Steve, and you've said to me, I don't know if that's right. A lot of people say that. Tolls are a blight on our society. I don't think they're actually constitutional. And we already technically pay for roads, bridges and tunnels we pay a fuel excise, which goes to, it's meant to go, maintain and fund roads. We pay driver's license, which part of that goes to maintain roads, bridges, tunnels. We pay registration on cars, which part of that goes to maintain roads, bridges, tunnels. So a toll, which is a tax, you're telling me there's a private company that somehow got the roads, and Gerard Rennick has said this. He said there's some sovereign assets. One of them is the roads. This is our road network. You can't really sell it off. It belongs to the people of Australia. You're telling me I'm supposed to pay a fourth time and a fifth time and a 10th time every time I want to go through the road. So I said I'd talk about that once, but, maybe on another show. But tolls are like a massive, massive blight, and they tend to be put in places where the socioeconomics of those areas is worse. Like there is tolls in, say, the CBD of Sydney and the eastern suburbs. But like, I just spoke to one of my neighbours, and he was telling me he went out somewhere for coffee today, and he paid 13 something just for one-way toll. Now he's got a 4-wheel drive, but at the same time, why should he? And I said to him, I said, these are bogus. Like, it's bogus. Like, why are we paying? We're being taxed to build the road. We're being taxed at state and federal levels, and every time we fill up fuel, and fuel isn't cheap at the moment, and then some, company, it's a bit like the unelected bureaucrat. They've made a deal with the government, and the government said, yeah, you can, charge people tolls to reuse the road every single time, and it's just another cost of living issue, actually.
You can tell, Robert, that I'm behaving myself because I'm not pushing back on the Libertarians ahead of the election. But after the election, it's going to be game on again, and maybe we can get Vanessa back on to
honestly
give her the real commanding the narrative treatment.
Yeah, the real commanding the narrative. I mean, I know you're not a fan of the Trumpet of Patriots. you said it on the podcast with the One Nation guy, Stuart Bonds, which I thought. Yeah. He's very knowledgeable from his own area, but you're like, oh, I hate that name. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
we'll get to that. Let's get to that. But I want to shift to net zero because that's going to be another massive issue going forward. I mean, I've been talking about this a lot on this show and talking about the economic damage from it, but also the environmental damage, the damage to our communities. Vanessa, out in Watson, what's your take on net zero policies, and what's the Libertarian stance on it?
Yeah. The Libertarians' position is that we definitely disagree with the net zero goal. It just makes no sense at all. I mean, Craig Kelly has presented some really undisputable graphs that talk about how China is growing its development of coal-powered plants, and their population is so much larger than ours. Yet we're supposed to be here for the size of the population we are. Even if we all went to net zero, the difference we would make globally would be 0.001%, something like that. It was a ridiculous number. So even if Australia did go net zero on the whole renewables goal that the government wants to achieve, we would not even make an impact globally. And meanwhile, we'll be digging up coal, shipping it off to China and letting them build up their coal power plants. And we're like, oh, that's okay if you guys pollute, but we won't pollute. And then what is that? It's such a contradiction to the whole point of having this treaty where we're all supposed to sign up for it. So yeah, we see the stupidity of the whole net zero goal. What we would like to do is say we lift the ban on nuclear power plants as an option. Let's just start giving it some at least opportunities to be researched properly, invested into. We're not saying you have to go full steam ahead with it, but lift the ban. And we definitely need to scrap the net zero. Specifically for the Watson area, there's a minority that more so green voters that care for it, but the everyday sort of general population here doesn't really care much about that. The reason being is they can't afford to live off electric cars, buy batteries for their solar panels. And, you know, when you talk about families, you have an average of 3 or 4 kids in a household. That dynamic changes. You need a car that you can actually take from place to place. These sort of crowds that support the whole net zero, it's often singles or people with 1 child or 2 children that can kind of move around on public transport or walk or get on a bike. You can't do that if you have a big family. You need to lug things around. So you do need that 4-wheel drive. And to be honest, everything just becomes impractical when you're trying to achieve that without coal. Like you need that as an option.
Now, big man, you're running in Bennelong this time, but you did run in North Sydney, so you've tangled with the teals like I have. Sure, you're not a big fan.
Stephen? Mate, honestly, Steve, I don't know, mate. I don't know how the people vote for someone like that. She's oh man. Anyway, don't get me so sorry to interrupt, but she's terrible.
You're talking about our good friend Zali, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't have to deal with the teal this time. But from a Trump...
well, hold on. The teals might be. I like to think the teals are more of an ideology than they are, you know, a group of independents. So, do we have teals in our area with the same silly ideas, same? I think I like what you said to me on the phone the other day, the rollout of reckless renewables. You know, the only thing renewable, as Senator Ralph Babette has said, is the cost. You know, people, I mean, we have a Greens, we have a Fusion Party. We don't technically have an endorsed Simon, sorry, not that Simon Holmes the court is endorsing these people because he's not, right? We don't have one of those teals. So North Sydney, look, I was in North Sydney, but where I live, they got pushed into the Bennelong. Although I also grew up in the Bradfield area, so I know Bradfield really well. I could have run there, and we have a teal there. So yeah, we are, you know, the teals are here, but yeah, you probably want to ask a specific question, I'm feeling.
Just about what the Trumpet of Patriots would do if they were elected when it comes to energy policy and net zero.
Oh, look.
No, knowing Clive, he'd just drill, baby, drill, right?
Well, I mean, that's the best thing for Australia. Why wouldn't you be using our own coal? Like, why aren't we using our own coal? I actually, and I have to recommend it. Like, I'm a man of principle, regardless if someone's in another party or something. But if they said something that I think was right, I really recommend people go and watch, just for learning about coal and power plants, is that Stuart Bond podcast you did, I think, last week. I actually learned quite a fair bit about it. Like, I didn't know about the ash. Like, Japan is buying our coal because it's very, very specific. They burn it with these special high capacity, low or high output and low something he mentioned. I need to go back and actually learn it.
Yeah.
Right. It was very interesting. He goes, they take the ash from our specific coal and put it into their concrete, and their concrete's like virtually indestructible to survive earthquakes and their tsunamis and whatever things going on in the tectonic plates. And I thought to myself, so there's very little waste from actually our coal, but yet here we are, being way too polite or way too brainwashed, whatever you want to call it. I mean, definitely brainwashing. So and it's funny, I had this discussion. I was talking, funny enough, not Paul Belair, but I was talking to this young kid in Queensland. He was like 24 or something. He had literally studied nuclear technology, and he'd gone through the science. It was like nerdy kid, real smart. And, we were talking about these ideas. And I think coal is the way to go now, as I agree with what Stuart said. We need to do something right now. Like, power prices are just going up and up and up and up. And like, that is literally, that's going to be the end of us. Once we get rolling blackouts, like, what are these people, like in my areas, everyone thinks, like, so many people driving a Tesla or an electrical car. I'm not against that technology per se. What I'm against is the fictitious idea that it's somehow saving the planet when you're getting the energy through, diesel generators or coal. But we need to do both. I think you need nuclear power plants, and you also need to keep burning coal, and also our liquid gas. We need to be doing that as well. So these are the solutions. Like, I don't have a problem. And again, what he said, like, if he's correct, the guy's from the Hunter and he's involved directly in coal mining. He said, we've got something like 100 years worth of digging and drilling before we run out or something like that. So, by then, 100 years, a lot of new technologies could come out. Maybe they perfect solar and wind by then. I don't know. But now is what we need to do. So I would honestly just say, look, you guys are in climate alarmism. You call me a climate denier. I think you're a climate alarmist, and we're just going to do what's best for the survival of Australia. Like, energy is one of the key things. I'll tell you this: my dad, when he came here, because he's a migrant, he studied chemical engineering, and he was pretty much told, engineering jobs, there's no manufacturing, there's nothing to do. So he had to go back overseas for a couple of years to actually get a job as an engineer. And I think one of the things that really stops any form of manufacturing or industry here is the price of energy. Like, our energy is very expensive, and it really doesn't need to be. And once I think we unlock cheap power, not just for the citizens, but for businesses, like in my area, I don't know, Vanessa, you've probably had all those emails come through from local papers. The shops in a lot of my local areas are struggling. And part of it, it's not just people are tightening their belts. It's the cost of doing business. Rent is high and electricity is expensive, even for a business. So, I'm just concerned that it has to get that bad before people wake up. And I don't necessarily want to be going through this, but if the last 3 years wasn't like a good enough lesson here, then the next 3, it's going to be way worse. They're going to steamroll ahead with all sorts of poor ideas. I mean, Labor's website, I think I looked at it today. They want to have by net, 80% renewables in another 5 years.
Renewables, 82% renewables by 2030.
4.5 years, because we're kind of halfway through the year almost. So how are you going to achieve this? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. I'll bring it up now if I can just find it. Here it is. If you go to the Labor Party website and you click on the our plan and then protecting our climate and environment, it says there under announced, deliver more cheap, clean, reliable, renewable energy to get rid of our electricity grid. No, to get our energy grid to 82% renewables by 2030. I mean, it says it there in black and white. It's just ridiculous. I mean, that's 5 years away. They want to get to 82% renewables. So, I mean, we talk about certain parties not being serious, but the Labor Party is not serious when it comes to energy. And that's no surprise with Chris Bowen being climate change and energy minister. But look, I want to press through with a few more issues before we finish. I know we're a bit over time. Got a comment, and we're going to put the heat on you now, Robert, because that's a lot of fun.
I got my aircon on. Go on. No, go on.
Okay. So Dilemma says, what's the deal with the alleged hack that occurred sharing Top's preferences? X is on fire at the moment because of it. And there are other posts floating around. There was this post on Facebook that called Sue Ellen Wrightson a traitor because there were instances where the Trumpet of Patriots put the teals at number 2, and Greens above Liberal in some cases, even to the point where this channel, this 6 News article talks about actually Trumpet of Patriots candidate Jason Smart. He's now telling people to put him last and don't vote for him because he was unhappy with the preferences, and it all came down to Trumpet of Patriots putting the teals above the Liberal Party, and he's saying, well, the big reason why I ran was to go up against the teals. Is there any truth behind this alleged hack? What's your comments on the preferences? Do you want to straighten this issue out for people?
So I'm the unofficial party spokesman now, right? No, look, I think the three of us know generally, like Steve, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're in One Nation, and Vanessa, you and I were in UAP, none of us really as candidates had a say of how the suggestion card. That is really what they are, suggestion cards, right? So I don't know, like I'm not privy to how these metrics are worked out. Look, I often question these suggestion or how to vote cards from all the parties, and I think to myself, like, what's actually going on? I'm pretty sure. I'm actually certain. I know deals get done behind the scenes. They all ring each other. And they play these threatening games. And I've seen Pauline Hanson, God bless her. She'll get out and say, "Well, we're going to do this to the Liberals and Labor." Now, I want to step back and look at this from a macro level. What is the difference between Liberal, Labor, Teals and Greens and the National? And if you start telling me one is slightly better than the other, well, then don't put them above, the others. Like, for example, and I'm not going to defend or some of these decisions. Honestly, it's out of my control. I don't know how the metrics are done. If I was privy to that information, I was allowed to say, I would comment. But for me to make a comment, how am I supposed to know? So here's the thing, right? What will be the difference if you put the Greens above the Liberals, or if you put Labor above the Liberals, or if you put a teal in these last sections or whatever? Like, what's going to be the difference? Like, we all deep down know they're all the same. And I like I think it was he was the Australian Christian Lobby, not Lyle Sheldon. I think it was Martin Iles. That's it. It was an aha moment for him, where he realised he can't just keep saying, "Oh, but if you don't vote for the Liberals, who are you going to vote for?" And remember in North Sydney, there was 4 other seats. They campaigned against the 5 incumbent members who went against Scott Morrison. So he thought, we have to go through some short-term pain. And I'm of this view, like when people say the Liberals are better than Labor, I ask them, like, if we as Trumpet of Patriots saying they're 99% the same, and we know that, the Libertarians know that, you know that, like there's maybe a handful, like, and I say this, like Robert, 1 or 2 do.
Hold on. I mean, the big question was because the narrative that's been put out there was that somehow there was a hack or something happened where the wrong how to vote cards went out. You're saying that they were the right how to vote cards, and it shouldn't be a big
I'm saying I don't know. I'm not privy, one, to the metrics, two, what's happened. There was a media release, and I think that's what they have said. So that's the party's official position. Like I'm genuinely telling you, I'm not privy to this information. Nobody's calling me to consult this. Like, I know people think, So look, but my point is, like, that's why I said I want to take a step back. People get really upset about the how to vote cards. Like, just number them yourself. Like, I really think it's time for people in Australia to start learning what does the numbering system actually mean at a federal level. Like, I really wish people would just take some time to try and understand what is going on if I put these numbers in this order. And then a how to vote card literally becomes a suggestive card. The problem is when people rock up to polling booths in pre-poll and stuff and just vote based on the card. So, look, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you an answer. Look, and I wouldn't say it's impossible that there was sabotage. I've had stuff. People have threatened me. People have done stuff to other friends of mine who've run with the UAP. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I couldn't tell you, we weren't consulted. We were just, and I think, from my understanding, a lot of people who are candidates, even in major parties, I'm not sure they're consulted. They're just told this is what's going to happen. So, it's a question mark. I honestly couldn't tell you one way or another. I could only give you my opinions, and they're not really that good. It's true.
I can just imagine your Labor opponent taking that one last line.
You know what? Let him. I'm honest. I'm not like him. So
that's why I love you, Robert. Now, Vanessa, like, outside looking in, you're not in the Trumpet of Patriots. You're seeing this happening. What's your thoughts on this? But Dilemmas is saying that this is attracting a lot of attention on social media, but also you in Watson, if the Trumpet of Patriots preference Labor ahead of you or something like that, how would you feel about it? What's your overall view of all of this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. They preference Liberal ahead of me. Interestingly enough, so I know the same candidate that ran for United Australia Party is running for Trumpet of Patriots in Watson. A very nice gentleman. Like, we became friends after the 2022 federal election. On an individual level, I highly respect him and would support him and even support people voting for him. He's a really good family man with honest values. Interestingly, though, when it comes to their preferences, I think he had virtually no say in it. So I was a bit baffled when I looked at his card and I saw myself number 6. And I questioned, well, how is that possible that your party thought I would not be recommended, considering I stood by their side 3 years ago? So clearly they don't put much thought into it. And I don't know if this is because on a higher scale, they're trying to push Libertarians out of their way. So it's more about competition on a higher level. But I don't take it personally. I think people read too much into preferences. I wish it was a bit like the local council elections, in fact, where you could have a valid vote if it was just number 1. I think that means if I want to vote just for one party, why should that be dismissed? The vote would be counted once. If it had no other number, then you would dismiss it after that count. It creates a lot of issues with these preferences because people think that we pass on our votes to other parties, and it doesn't exist and it can't exist. So when people look at the preferences, they think that I'm best friends with number 2 or number 3 or 4. It's like, no, I just have to preference someone, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability as to who I think has policies that are lined up with me. But sometimes I know the individual and they're really good, but their party may not be as well aligned with me. And I do want to support them because I think they would be very good representatives. So it gets a bit tricky, but the public doesn't know that. So it also becomes mathematical. So people do deals whereby you put us number 2, we'll put you number 2. That will help flow votes to me. I have a better chance, even though their policies are not aligned at all. It's almost, there's no one sort of manual to do this, and each party and each candidate just wings what they think is the best way to do it. If you overread into it, it can cause you to have a blurred vision to who you vote for. So just dismiss the preferences, number people as you like. But I think for Trumpet of Patriots, I really don't know if that was an accident or intentional. I wouldn't put it past Clive to almost do deal. Like I remember when at the 2022 federal election, the Parramatta candidate, he'd been advocating, as Clive did for the whole campaign, to put Liberals and Labor and Greens last. That was his billboard message everywhere. And then when it came to the preference card, they had given him a suggestion to put Liberal number 2. And he was horrified. How can you ask me to put Liberal number 2 when all I've been doing is advocating to put them last? And so it shocked me that Clive would even suggest to put Liberals number 2. Like, why would you even go there with your billboards suggesting otherwise? So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past Clive to sometimes quickly flip the situation on its back and baffle everyone. But, yeah, I wouldn't know really either.
Can I just say, like, when you, Vanessa, like, just looking at your House of Reps, really, you are above the majors. Like, Tony Burke's the Labor, right? He's number 9. The others are like Zakia Alam, he's Liberal. The Greens is Jocelyn Brewer. And then you're above that. Like, yes, ideally, you'd probably want to be higher. But the rest of these people, like, I suspect Trumpet's got some sort of deal with Family First, because I think they seem to be high on a lot of the cards. And again, I'm not a spokesperson. I don't know. But you are above the majors. You are above all the majors. Like, okay, and look, you've got a lot of independents in your.
Are you speaking about Bennelong, or are you talking about?
I'm talking about Watson. I just had a look because I thought, okay, let's break it down, and it's
What's
like
liberal? What is
liberal? You're above Liberal. So, well,
okay.
if you don't know.
No, I read everyone's preference card, so I've lost track about.
Okay, so number the guy named Zakia Alam, he's number 8, right?
Yeah.
7 is Jocelyn Brewer, which is the Green. So I guess, he's really sending a message to the 2 majors, because they are the biggest 2, Labor and Liberal. So he put Greens 7. He's put Liberals, by the look of it, he's put Liberals 8, and he's put Tony Burke dead last. So
that's good. He did.
So you're above the majors. Like, okay, you're not above these independents. I've never heard of these people in my life. Pauline Hanson, One Nation, look, that person is above you. So it's not as bad as it sounds. Ideally, maybe you could have been higher, but again, it's really not that bad. Like, if you just take a look. But yeah, so that's
6. And you're saying it's not that bad,
mate. If you listen to what I'm saying, she's above the majors. Okay, so we know a lot of times, right, currently, because of the way the psyche of the voting class in this country is, we know generally it's going to come down to a Liberal or a Labor, a National or a Greens, or a Teal. These are the 5 major groups, right? So I think if we're above those in the in the suggestion cards, I really want to get the name changed, because that's what they are. It's a suggestion. Yeah. Like, if you don't if you don't want to follow this card, don't. If you do it. Like, same with any card. Like, it comes down to So many people have talked about it. You number the ballot how you want. So, you know, and like I said, maybe it could have been higher for Vanessa. You know,
Interestingly, Robert, what's so interesting is Liberal and Labor both have put me number 3 on their preference card.
right?
And it's ironic.
Well, in my seat, it's a different story. So again, it goes from, look, from what I understand, and Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're hanging around all the experts these days. I know from personal experience, in 2022, the North Sydney incumbent went against the party, dismissed the HQ, did his own how to vote cards. He put me under the Greens. He thought Greens was a better option than me. That's what he was signaling to the electorate. And so, you know, he's allowed to do that. Other people who are in the major parties but not elected or not rerunning for re-election, from what I understand, they have a lot less say. So, you know, again, it's like I really like you shouldn't let these cards get to you. This is what I'm saying to just in general to people. And Steve, I think you've made a really good point a few times to me that, you know, Labor voters, Greens voters, and that side, they tend to follow the card pretty religiously, right? They go 90%. They just follow the card.
Very, very good preference discipline. So,
right.
I mean, that's a big part of why, you know, Labor can be successful when the primary votes are very similar with the Liberal Party, and they get those extra preferences from the Greens and the other minor left parties.
Yeah.
Whereas on the right side, it flies off everywhere.
Yeah, and you showed me that because I was like, really? They're not just preferencing one another, but you know, when you put like a classic example is when they put One Nation one and then the Greens too. It's like, what's going on here? Like you picked polar opposites. So it really, I think it's got to come down to people actually having to actually just learn this a little bit. Maybe there's things we can do to help people, and then to learn it. But that's how I kind of look at it now. Like I was sort of upset the first time, as you would be. Oh, how dare they put me, and how dare they put me this low? It's like, well, you know, you got to put someone somewhere. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. We're almost at the end point, but I want to squeeze in some rapid fire questions because there's 3 main questions I really want to hear from both of you. So
okay, ready? I'm getting ready. Okay, go on, Steve.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hit you with one first, Robert, because this is your how to vote card, and you've well, not you, but the party has put Jerome Laxale ahead of the Liberal Scott Young. Now, with the redistribution, the Liberals, even though it's a Labor-held seat, the Liberals are likely to win that on a very, 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 very slim margin. I think it's like 0.4%. My big question to you, though, is let's talk about Labor because you're both in Labor-held seats. Does Anthony Albanese deserve another term as Prime Minister, and does Labor deserve another term in government?
I mean, the other side of that coin is the Liberal deserve it. The answer is no to both of these. No, they don't. But again, because of the way we're structured in Australia with 2 major parties, and we're going to get one of the 2. Like, you know, I mean, I don't know what the current, you know, the primary vote is going to be. Like last election, it was 31% Labor, 34% Liberal. So that, you know, that people have to start being a lot more just what's the word? They have to be a lot more like they have to pick the people carefully. They have to do a bit of research, you know. They can't just go in there with a how to vote card because if you know, and I suspect we're going to get a Labor government. So no, do I think they deserve it? Not really. But you're also telling me that's like saying the Liberals deserve it. And again, back to my thing, if they're 99% the same, they're just mirrors, they're copying one another's policies, what's the real difference? You know, don't forget who locked us all down and did all that stuff. There was a Liberal government. Don't forget who put us in massive amounts of debt. It was a Liberal government. They're the ones who brought in all sorts of crazy laws. So I don't think they're any better. So yeah, my answer would be to both of them. No, I don't think either of them deserve it.
What about you, Vanessa?
Yeah, same. It's a hard question because I wouldn't be running if I actually thought I would be comfortable with the Labor party being in government again. But I also don't like the idea of Liberals either. And then if you say, let me eliminate those two, that leaves you with the third runner-up is the Greens. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all hell break loose then. So if it was an ideal situation, I would really love to see the minor parties have balance of power, because that would really rein in all the just useless policies that the major parties have brought in. And but yeah, I really don't know anymore. As a student, I used to vote for Labor. As I started working, I shifted to Liberal. So I kind of changed my position according to the circumstances my lifestyle was in. Now I wouldn't touch either, no matter what the situation is in the future, because I know better. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the public do not know better. So we need to really educate them that they're being fooled. And the Medicare fee strategy is, again, today at the pre-poll is what the Volunteers for Labor were using. They want to remove Medicare. Labor is for Medicare. And it's like, well, no one's advocating to remove Medicare, so that's silly. And in fact, Medicare is no longer the Medicare it was. People are having to top up Medicare. So what are you advocating for, really? I mean, sooner or later, people are not even going to afford to see the doctor because of the top-up fees. So, yeah, that's a hard one, Stephen. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, the next question is actually from Robert. You wanted to pose a question, and I thought it was a good question. Okay, you want to take the lead on this one, mate?
Well, it was mainly for you, but I'll ask you both. Just based purely on the name, which political party is actually the best?
Which has the best name?
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Vanessa go first.
Look, the Libertarian name has a lot. I like the sound of it, but sometimes a lot of the challenges I get at polling booths is, what do you stand for? What is Libertarian? And maybe that's just a what's an electorate demographics, but I struggle for people to know what we stand for. I think myself, my slogan on my call flutes is faith, family, and freedom. I'm a big advocate for allowing people to just hold on to their every way of living, to encourage them to practice their faith and to keep their families together. And that can't happen without freedom and choices. So I would say there's a party called Family First. That probably resonates with me a lot because it sums up. If you stand for family, it means you stand for split income taxes. It means you stand for having opportunities for the mother to stay at home if she wanted to, not being forced to go out and work because they can't afford to. So every policy is designed to allow the parents to have a life with their children and not being pulled apart due to financial stresses. So I do like the name Family First because it resonates personally with me.
Okay, that's interesting. Look, I think the easy answer is that if you're looking at the worst name ever, it's Trumpet of Patriots. That's
well.
That's the easy answer.
You think it's worse than Labor? Okay, I'm just putting it out there, and worse than the Greens, and worse than Animal Justice and Fusion, and what's the Sex Party? Come on, Steve.
No, it's worse than all of them, mate. It's worse than all of them. And I know I'm picking on both of you, but I have complained about the Libertarian Party, and I think it's similar to what you said, Vanessa. I think calling yourselves Libertarians, now you have to talk about libertarian ideology. Whereas if you'd picked another name, you could have just been another, what John Ruddick talks about, an alternative to the Liberal Party. And I think that would have probably suited things a lot better, but it is what it is now. So definitely Trumpet of Patriots is a horrible name. The best name is harder, much harder. I think One Nation is a good name, but it's been tarnished. It's been tarnished by Pauline Hanson, which is unfortunate. So look, I'm going to go outside and probably say maybe something like Reform UK. I think that's a fairly decent name. Look, I think it does open the door for another party to evolve somewhere in the future. We can set up a party with a really good name. And I know you don't agree, Robert, but I don't mind the Liberals. Like, if you go back to what Robert Menzies wanted the Liberals to be, he didn't want it to be a conservative party. He did want it to be a little bit socially progressive. So that's why he did call it the Liberals. So, yeah, it's a hard question. I'd probably, if I had to pick one, let me just say Reform UK or Reform or something like that. I mean, I don't mind that and their branding and things like that. So it was a good question. I really like that one. But the better question, let's finish it off. The final segment of Commanding the Narrative, and it's called Build Your Own Fantasy Government. Now, I'll ask you separately, both of you. I don't know who I'm going to pick on first. Maybe let's give Vanessa the go first. Now, Vanessa, you're in charge of ladies first. You're in charge of the next Parliament of Australia, and you can choose 5 or 6 people to head up the next government of Australia. They can be living or dead. They don't have to be politicians. It's completely up to you. But 5 or 6 people to lead Australia into the good direction, a positive direction, a stable direction. Who do you choose?
Okay, I'm gonna go off people that I have learned to trust, despite the fact that yes, some historical politicians have made a good impact, but I'm very critical of many politicians now. When I've entered this political arena, I don't trust people very easily. I would say I would definitely have Craig Kelly there. Craig Kelly has proven to be a solid person that has never budged his principles, and I would always trust he would be there for the people till the very end. Another one would be, this is a hard one. Can I think on this while Robert says his 5? Because I really want to put together the 5 that I really...
Okay. All right. I would pick Vanessa Hadchiti and Stephen Tripp.
Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott is another one. He did have good policies, yeah.
I think I'm going to go and name the obvious. Donald J. Trump. That's my number 1 pick.
We're going outside of Australia.
Yeah, living or dead. Vanessa, look, he's really good, but I'm the best. So I would probably have someone like Donald Trump. He's bold. He's people often, they don't like New Yorkers, is what New Yorkers think. And he's just I like him. He's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe that's what I like about him. I would also, I'm not sure I can give you 5 off the top of my head, but I would also pick, oh man, the name escapes me. Come on, I just had it in my head. Oh yeah, that's right. The El Salvador president, Nayib Bukele. I was quite fascinated with his interview with Tucker Carlson. The way this guy, I just thought, wow, he's so well spoken. And he's dealing with really hard situations in his country, and he's able to make very hard decisions. I'd also consider someone like Javier Milei. Like that guy, he's turned Argentina around very quickly. So these would be like 3 I would pick just off the top of my head. Let's see, someone. I should pick someone from Australia.
We're in a sorry state. You can't think of anyone from Australia.
Well, it's not that. It's just that what I think, and I'm sorry to divert from the question, but I just don't think the real true gems in this country have been given opportunities to shine. Like we saw Britain disendorsed. We've seen people kicked out. Matthew Camanzuli, you've been kicked out. Craig Kelly was booted out. Gerard Rennick, essentially, he's out. So, you know what? I would want someone like Gerard Rennick also on my team. I like, he's a very sound economics guy. I like a lot of what he says. I think he's well spoken. He's experienced. If I had to pick him or Craig Kelly, I'd pick one of these as the people from Australia. So that's kind of, these are the 4 or 5 that I'd be looking at getting, people who can make hard decisions, people of conviction, character, and I better say it. I better mention my mate. I'd probably pick Andrew Robertson because I need someone around to pray with. I'm serious.
Very good. He'd be a good choice. I've got a comment here from Adzaka. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Bob Hawke, Margaret Thatcher, and Trump. Yeah. So that's the pick there from the audience. Vanessa, did you get your...
It's funny to talk about, Andrew. Like, I think if I would rather stick with the people that I've learned to come on the ground, that have come from nothing and never changed along the whole way. Natalie Duma, who ran for UAP but has since just, running forums out at Double Bay, Edgecliff area. Yeah. She and I have consistently just stood by each other and never put ourselves first in any of these campaignings at all. We've sacrificed a lot for the greater good, and she's very knowledgeable on things that I think would definitely have a great impact in Parliament. Ben Britton is definitely another person who he got disendorsed for standing up for the truth, and I really admire people that do not buckle and sell themselves out, especially the people and the truth, for gain. And he worked so hard for the Liberal Party. No one will ever see how hard he worked, and pretty much lost it all for speaking the truth. And people like that are admirable to me, which is why Craig Kelly is, Ben Britton, Natalie Duma does a lot of good. I really enjoy people that stand. I would love, looking back at people that are dead or alive, someone like Nelson Mandela, who's a leader of the people, someone who's come from tough, very vulnerable, very disadvantaged situation to come up, rise up against all the hardship and lead the people and empower them. I really admire people like that are in it for genuine reasons. And it's hard to find that amongst politicians. So I'm probably naming people that aren't there yet. And that's because we often don't vote for the good people. We vote for the people that are just really kind of sold themselves and we buy into it. So I'd love to see a government filled with non-politicians, and that way we can make decisions in a very much professional, thoughtful manner.
That's a good answer. And look, it's interesting to look back at the UAP in 2022. You've mentioned some of the names there: Ben Britton, Natalie Duma, and Andrew Robertson, the two of you. I mean, you had a stellar cast of candidates there, in my opinion. And for Clive Palmer to then just wrap it up and pack up his ball and take it home was disappointing. You guys should have been building branches and moving forward, and you had a good crew there. So hopefully, I mean, it's good that those people are staying active and staying involved in different ways, but it goes to show that there are talented people out there. They just need to be in the right place, and hopefully somehow you guys can come together again. It's in some form, and then hopefully be the true hope of the side for this country in the future.
I actually think that almost seems like an inevitability at the moment. So, there's no plan, there's no talking, nothing, but I just feel like eventually it's almost like an inevitable path, because we're all heading in a very similar direction. It's only a matter of time before we're all sort of together, and then that's when you'll need a name, a constitution. You need to set it up properly, and then go from there. But who knows what the future holds. We'll find out in May the 3rd.
Well, I know what the future will hold. After May 3rd, I'll be able to pick on the Libertarians again. I've been far too nice to the Libertarians this election. I won't be able to pick on the Trumpet of Patriots because Clive will no doubt deregister the party after a month. But
maybe. You never know.
But look, guys, I know we've gone over time tonight, but I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure I'll have you both back on at some point in the future. All the best this election. I hope you guys do really well. And for everyone watching, if you want to support both Vanessa and Robert, please do so. If you live in their electorates or you live close to them, please volunteer. Pre-polling has already started. Volunteers are like gold for candidates. You can head to the Trumpet of Patriots website and find Robert's page there with his how to vote card and also his email if you want to get in contact with Robert. He's also got a YouTube channel if you want to follow some of the stuff that he's done. It's I Am Nalbandian at YouTube, and you can check out everything that he's done there, protesting outside Kirribilli House and different things. And also, if you want to check out Vanessa, head to the Libertarians page, and you can see her profile there with her contact details if you want to support them. And lastly, just head to Commanding the Narrative as well. Don't forget to hit the sign up button in the top right hand corner, and you'll get the weekly newsletter. You can keep up to date with all our podcasts. We will be doing election reviews. Hopefully we can squeeze in a pre-election analysis as well. But we'll be moving forward as well and be as strong as ever. So thank you, guys. Is there anything you want to say to the voters out there before we finish up? A final comment, Robert?
I will say, as always, if these people are not putting you first, why are you putting them first? Just that simple.
And Vanessa?
I can never have enough volunteers, and the seat of Watson has a real spotlight on it. There's a lot of heat on the ground, and if you want to enjoy the ride, come down to Watson, email me, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Very good. Well, guys, I've enjoyed the ride tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to everyone that has been commenting in the chats. It always adds to a great interview. And yeah, again, if you can volunteer, if you can share this interview out, if you know people that live in Watson or Bennelong, get it in the hands of them and tell them that they've got two very good candidates to vote for. And all the best to everyone out on the hustings. I hate that word, but I can't think of anything else at this stage. Out in the electorate, out on the ground, volunteering. Pre-poll started is a chaotic time. I've still got traumatic memories from 2022, but there can be some enjoyment along the way. So thank you to everyone for watching tonight, and we'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, Steve.